I am delighted to have Spencer Gallagher on the show with me today. Spencer is a second time guest on the show, and we spoke, Spencer, a couple of years ago, and he is my go to guru for everything future thinking with the agency business model. And Spencer, I really want to pick your brains about what you're seeing in the marketplace and where you see the future going. So, welcome back.
Thank you. I can't remember what we spoke about last time, but I'm sure it was all sorts of interesting things.
Well, your catchphrase, I think, is the now, the next, and the future of agencies, and I think that was the theme.
Makes sense.
Given how much has changed since we last spoke, I just want to have a dig into that and to pick your brains about what you see is happening. So, just recently, you've relaunched Bluhalo. So, can you tell us a bit about what your current focus is with helping agencies and the industry?
Yeah, so I think, the journey for me in running businesses sort of started really at the beginning of the 90s when I first went on the internet, which was, I guess, the biggest technology revolution that's happened to date, arguably. And so during the 90s, I became very in tune with, I think, the pace of change around the internet. And that ended up with me starting an agency at the end of the 90s. And I guess the kind of overwhelming thought in my head at that time that was was I felt this responsibility to help business modernize using technology. So everything I did pretty much during we call them the noughties. The noughties was about helping businesses transform using digital technology, or internet technology as we then called it. And so I always share this story actually because I think it's very pertinent and relevant for today. I've been sharing it a lot of late recently. It was in 2000. I had a company, ultimately started off building websites, and I went into a company called loans.co.uk to build them a website. And actually what we realized when we walked around was that they had a huge amount of people processing loans manually in the business. And a lot like today with AI, the internet could provide a new solution. So even though as a company building websites, I wasn't solving other problems, I identified a problem that the internet could solve. And so back at the beginning of 2000s, we were the first people building online secured loan applications. Until that point, you used to fill a form out, print it out, and then fax it in. So technology was taking existing problems, digital technology, and it was improving the way we did things. So when you think back to the early 2000s, I built a lot of the high street jewelers websites. I helped a lot of people disrupt that market because we used to say the internet's a great leveler. It's probably a term we're going to hear about AI soon. And so what I did was able to help people use web technology to be able to transform the way we do business. And so that's where I started life. And of course, when I then sold my agency, what I found was all the other agencies were coming to me going, hey, you've grown a business during this time. We're not really fully digital. A lot of agencies still 10 years later were still behind the curve. Could you come and help us? Also, even if they were digitally centric, could you understand us and you will understand where we need to go next. And so I spent the last 14 years helping agencies become digital first on the back of it. So of course it just made perfect sense. I've been saying to everyone that 2024 was a really transformative year for me in terms of business. And I believe that we are back now. I think last year for me was 99. This year is the year 2000. Maybe or maybe not, there'll be a crash like there was the first time round. But it feels to me now that we're ready to help businesses utilize new technology. So the reason I took Bluhalo's name was ultimately Bluhalo was sort of synonymous with, transforming people digitally. And I want Bluhalo to now be synonymous with transforming people from an AI perspective. Yeah. So long answer, but there you go. Quite succinct.
Well, I love the story because it makes total sense. And obviously, the value of your agency is reflected in the kinds of business outcomes and problems you were solving for your clients. And this is a theme that is coming up with this AI and how it's transforming the agency business model. So you're talking to a lot of agencies now. Where is their mindset on this adoption curve?
It's interesting because when I went in 24, I started to notice that I think that most agency services had matured. I think people had stopped focusing on the next and future. They had basically taken matured technology, whether it be an agency doing web development or digital transformation, whether it was doing SEO or pay per click. They'd all hit a point where there's a list of services. The briefs are all kind of the same. It's felt like the business was had hit this, and then it was all about how to make those businesses better. I think when I did my first talk on I actually did two talks. The first talk I ever did on Journey to AI was actually in 2017, and I was warning everyone then that we are going to see this next change coming through. So between 2017 and 2024, it's very much talking about it. But of course, until 23, until we started to see ChatGPT come out and take off, really, a lot of people were very cynical about chatbots and Web3 and everything else. So just to say, I think that when I did the first Journey to AI talk again last year, I think I put my hands up and said how many people in the room are beyond, using OpenAI or using Gemini, are using AI in their business. And it was literally, or Gen AI, and it was literally I think about 15% of the room. But if you forward that to the last talk I did about a month ago, it was now 100% of the room. And so there's no question that I think agencies, by the way, I think agencies and tech businesses are, in my mind, the best at adopting new things. They were the first to do the 4-day week. They're the first to have offices that felt more like houses and homes, like way back when. I mean, I think agencies are generally very progressive in tech businesses. And I think last year they've all demonstrated that. They've sort of, submerged themselves in basically everything they can do. But there's no question that it's hard. I know this. It's hard running a multi-million-pound business and then having to have one eye on the future. And now, with Bluhalo, now with this stage, it's a lot easier because I'm like a startup again. I've built 8 or 9 websites, I think it is now, in the past 4 weeks, from to completion. It's like all of a sudden I can vibe code. I can actually do some of the things rather than man manage. That's given me a bit of an edge, to do that. And I feel for the larger agencies, especially the founders who are struggling to create time, to make time to do this. They're relying on their teams to do it and show them. But as you know, people don't like change. And so the biggest challenge really is how fast can, as a leader, how fast can you empower your teams to adopt new things, and as an owner, how do you, because owners are entrepreneurs often, and sometimes they're CEOs, but generally speaking, they're the visionaries. And often it takes that visionary, those people, to sometimes see the secret sauce, or what would the next iteration of our business look like? And it's hard to do that when you're stuck in the day to day.
Let's suppose you have an entrepreneurial agency leader and they've been running their agency for a while. They've got these mature services, as you refer to, and they do actually take the time to step away from the business to do some future thinking. Talk us through where you would help them begin in how to think about the future.
I think most people running businesses are creators, and you lose that when you run a business. You end up becoming, a leader and a manager of people. And so I think the thing is reconnecting with the joy. And the joy, I think, for most people I know who are running businesses is making things, whether you're a creative or whether you're an engineer, whether you're a strategic person, whether, like for me, being someone who was a web developer who scaled a business. I'm now, with the domain knowledge I have in that space, it's easy for me to very quickly curate from a very simple prompt, a very sophisticated website that might have cost, application that might have cost 100 grand to build only a year ago. And so I would encourage them to maybe reconnect with that creator side of them. And if they're an artist, then learn, then obviously go and start to play and connect to all of the tools that enhance that. And if you are a videographer, with VO and Sora, make sure that you are mastering your new craft, because you will create everyone keeps going on about, the mediocrity of AI, but it's only mediocrity if you've got someone who's shit at design trying to create images on Mid-Journey, like me. They always look terrible when I do it. So yeah, I think that what I encourage them to do is to take time away. I think being more human right now is probably needed. More time away. I talk often about a space. Some people call it the sacred fifth. It's the space where you go out into nature, and it's the space where you've got distance and perspective on things. And then if you listen to the thoughts in your head, the magic comes through and the answers to all of those life challenges that were thrown at us. And I think owners and founders probably need to get some space away and take some time to play and to enjoy and to find a reconnection, because that's where the magic and mojo for the next stage is going to come from. And I know this because I've experienced it myself, and I've been working with AI quite a lot over the last 2-3 years, but maybe not fully committing to it in the level I've been able to, being a startup again.
So I love that. That's quite a counterintuitive way of thinking about this for me personally. Like, get your mojo back first through creativity, through playing with the tools, because you're right. AI that doesn't have that human judgment. So get back to that humanness in order to energize yourself to kind of approach the next phase. Yeah.
Yeah. Agencies have been beaten up. I mean, let's be really honest. I don't care who, like, I'm fortunate, right? I speak to 50, 60 agencies every single month, probably like you do. And, you know, 90% of them have had a tough rise. Not everyone talks about it publicly, because why would they? But the reality is, it's been brutal. It's been and I think, look, AI has, I know you had Roy on, and, Roy is right in many ways. It's a perfect storm of, economic micro and macro challenges, and a technology super cycle on our doorstep, where everyone kind of has this innate feeling and knows that they should hold back and wait because something better can be created very quickly. And I've seen that like firsthand. Like, you've seen people not making decisions to go ahead and build applications, and seeing no code tools being still pretty shocking a year ago, but between 6 months and 6 weeks ago suddenly becoming incredibly smart. And so there are definitely, I think that there is definitely going to be some threats coming in, and I think it's a really good time now not to be caught up in the weeds of the daily fight and the daily struggle, and try to give yourself some distance and perspective. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So create the time, get the distance, get your mojo back, re-energize yourself, and then what? Like, what would your advice be? Because you see a lot of agencies, different business models, different sectors offering different things. What is your vision for which ones are going to endure?
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, okay. Well, I think which ones are going to enjoy is a great question. I think we all really know, because we've been saying it for the last 3 years. Was the people that work with AI will replace those who don't, right? And so at the end of the day, it's a bit. I have pattern recognition. I blame my ADHD, but basically the pattern recognition is, in the year 2008, when we had our last downturn, all the big agencies let go of all the people that didn't understand digital. Probably pretty identical to what all the big network groups have been doing in the past 2 years, right? And the people who haven't been let go, I know this because some of my friends are those people, are the ones who are all over AI, because they need those people. So the reality is that in your team, you've got a decision to make as an agency owner or as an agency leader: is, can you help people become AI native? Because you don't need digital native people in your business anymore. You need all AI. And how quick can you make that happen? And the quicker you make it happen, probably the more future proof your business will be. But you can wait. There's a brilliant business book called Maverick. It came out in the 80s. I didn't read it myself until the noughties. It tells a story about a guy called Ricardo Semler. I think I got his name right. I haven't read his book for 20 years. And he takes over the family business. And this is in the 80s, when computers first came in. So let's say that almost the technology super cycle before the internet. And his dad went on, it was a family business, and his father went on holiday. And when his father went on holiday, he fired half the company. He fired all the people that he knew wouldn't be able to use computers and work going forwards. Now, I'm not for a moment suggesting anyone should be firing anyone, right? That's not my thing. But I do think it is a responsibility of all leaders to make sure that their team members are trained, are brought up to speed, are given time, and also that those team members are creating time themselves to future proof their careers and to get the business to a point where, as a unit, as a high performing team, you're all singing from the same hymn sheet. You all know that whatever happens in the future, whatever it looks like, is going to be a combination of human and AI technology working hand in hand to deliver across three pillars, internal client relationship and then the external products or services you deliver. And that's going to look fundamentally different to what it does today in 10 years from now. I'm not going to say 16 months. I don't agree with Roy's 16 months unless you are a certain. There's 75 types of agencies, Jenny. So it's always hard to answer this specifically because if you're a copywriting agency, you might argue, well, you didn't need a big team of copywriters anymore because with one CCD, creative copy director, and AI, you should be able to curate together hand in hand successfully. And maybe if that creative copy director has a mid and a junior, those three people honestly could probably have done the work of an agency with 10 people 5 years ago, right? So it is already impacting businesses. However, if you're a field marketing agency who goes out and does face-to-face marketing, take the mince pies in Marks and Spencer's, I'm not saying that ain't going to go in 14 months. Where human to human experience is only going to get more important. That's why the fastest growing area at the moment, according to the IPA Bellwether report, is events, live events, it's brand experience, brand activation, because it's human to humans. Yeah, so basically, I think that, a lot of people say, well, what are agencies going to look like? Well, I can tell you quite succinctly what they will look like. They'll be a lot smaller, a lot leaner. They'll be they'll be paying for a lot more technology. Yeah. They'll be paying for the technology with the lower headcount, although the headcount will be more expensive because it will be more senior. It will have succession. You will have juniors and you will have mids, but you won't have reams of them. You'll have narrow succession planning. You don't need tons of in depth, and you will have everything will be much more automated. And like I know this, everyone's cynical about genuine or autonomous agentic approaches, but I'm telling you now, as a business owner, in my last business there were 1,000 things. I might exaggerate. Let's say I'm going to pick a low number. 200 things that if we'd automated them would have happened every single day of the year. But because we didn't, we would do them sometimes and then not others. And so if you can imagine a business that is on steroids, it is able to automate highly repetitive tasks that as humans we sometimes forget or don't prioritize or we get bored of. If you can do all those things, then I think it's going to make a massive difference to the way that the agencies work. And look, we are going to be able to deliver higher quality work, that's more quantity of work and better effectiveness because we'll be able to get it tested. And I've already seen some fantastic projects where people are creating to test creative, to test adverts, to test once all these tools come together, it's going to be very powerful for clients to use. And someone said, oh yeah, but clients will in-house everything. Yeah, they probably will, but I've spoken to a lot of clients and they're like, we don't have time to do our own stuff. So we're always going to go outside. And I did write a post on this the other day, Jenny. I said, agencies have got to remember, okay, it's not what you sell today, right? It's agencies are businesses that provide a service to a brand or organization that hasn't got the time, resource, or knowledge to be able to complete it. And that's why it goes elsewhere. That's why it goes elsewhere to get recruitment. That's why it goes elsewhere to get whatever type of marketing service it's missing. PR. You don't have an in-house brand person because you only change your brand maybe once every 2 years. Why would you recruit someone? Look, big companies like Coke and Guinness, they may have in-house brand managers, of course, directors, but nevertheless, will it be easier for that to go in-house? It really will do, but sometimes businesses need outside perspective. So I think there's going to be some changes. It's not going to happen overnight. I think that saying, we always overestimate what happens in 2 years and underestimate 10 should be printed on. I'll probably get it tattooed on my arm because it's true every time. Like I was on the internet in 92 going, oh yes, this is going to change the whole world. And by 99, by the year 2000, everyone's laughing. I think the internet's a joke. I built my first mobile site in 2002 on a WAP phone. About 2000 and I think it was on a WAP phone. Mobile phones are going to be the next big thing. It didn't happen for another 10 years, maybe 12 years, really, before the App Store actually really kicked off. Even when it came out at the end of the noughties, it still took a while to settle in. So I think we just got to remember that consumer adoption and business adoption takes time.
I think you're right. It's easy to get caught up in a bubble, isn't it? When you're surrounded by these AI
Yeah.
thought leaders and you're right immersed in it. You said something quite interesting at the beginning. You were with Bluhalo the first time round. You identified a need, a business outcome that the client was experiencing, a problem, and you fixed it through the web. There's a lot of talk about this, about really identifying what the client is experiencing and identifying a problem to fix.
Yeah,
Because you also said a lot of the services we're offering are maturing now. So there's a reinvention of the actual deliverables that we offer.
absolutely.
What examples?
Yeah, as we work with clients over longer periods of time, our work always gets commoditized. So if you go back to the 90s, there was a lot of agencies who used to do artworking, to do company, like, you know, the sort of the company account, company reports for the FTSE. They would, you know, use I can't remember the name of the product now, but it was like there was a huge amount of illustration work, basically, right? And people are illustrating and typesetting. I mean, back then,
Typesetting.
typesetting, I mean, even just print work was you know, a major part of the majority of agencies, not the minority. So, you know, things get commoditized, like building websites. You know, like I think my first website at Bluhalo, no, in fact, my last website at Bluhalo was about 35,000-40,000 quid. You know, I've just you know, launched a website recently where basically three of us worked in an Airbnb for a weekend to do it, and actually now I've built eight in about, let's get my number, but I think it's been about 4 weeks now, but I've built 8 websites in 4 weeks. And so each one's cost $50 and maybe a domain name at £10.
What are
Yeah,
you
so,
using? Just
and it's
in
taken
out of
5 hours.
interest. What are you using to do that?
There's a load of no code products out there, so people can go and choose and find what's best for them. I won't plug anyone today, but I think but they're there, and also, you know, like, they didn't work a year ago. I took one of my tools in my, and here's, like, you talk about what can people do. I think you would start by going back into some of your clients' businesses and get close to the company. And the more you know about these things, well, first of all, you've got to do it for yourself first. So as a business, if you're not building things for you, you're taking your knowledge, your IP, and building stuff, really, you're not going to understand how you can impact your clients' businesses as well. And I think that, you know, if you look, for example, with me, a lot of my tools were on spreadsheets for many years. Most people who know me are listening to this now know that I've ran a series of you know, we ran the businesses on a set of spreadsheets which were highly optimized and just, you know, were simple but got the job done, and everyone scaled who used them. But in the last week, I've productized nearly all of them. And so I've now told them, now listen, I'm not saying that a SaaS product is going to be here for the future and it's fully AI, but right here, right now, it's a move on from where it was. And it's very easy for me now to integrate to AI and to enhance them, and then ultimately even change the whole UX on the way they operate. I think you've got to start internally, definitely. I think you've got to start to lead by example. Your clients will then see what you're doing and be impressed by what you're doing, and then may well say, listen, you could be someone who used to build websites, or let's pick a digital transformation agency. You know, within a year from now, you could be going into, you know, I don't know, pick any a tax advisors and building them a new tax system that automatically figures out how to optimize people's taxes super fast online. And you're suddenly a specialist in a completely different niche, completely set with IP at the heart of what you do. And you've got to be ready for that right now, because you have to follow demand. You can't just sit there and wait for your clients to go, oh, we figured out now how we need to work with an agency. Because if you're not doing it, someone else has done it,
It
you know?
feels like there's a lot that the agency owner has to be doing simultaneously right now. Do you think that
Yeah.
the speed is really necessary? Because the other question that I've got for you is also about how we price, because
Do you
obviously
want me
there's
to
a
be
lot of
really
talk.
controversial?
Yes.
People aren't going to like me saying this. When I won my first pitch, no one in my team was asked to work late, but they worked through the night. 10 people worked through the night to deliver the Subaru World Rally Team website. I'm not proud of that fact, by the way, because I was there with them and it was really tough. But we had a joint purpose, vision. We all were in something new and exciting, a new a new genre, a new generation of technology, working with an incredible client. And the team wanted to work to do that because they knew it would go on their CVs and it would make their careers in the future look good as well. Okay. For the last 10 years, we have focused too much on, we've overcorrected on the way that we work in workspaces. The work rate has shifted. That's why America's outperforming us. We are too, I mean, how many agencies? I mean, we don't go to offices. Most people probably aren't working on a Friday afternoon. I know when I have my own team and we're doing flexible working, I couldn't get hold of anyone on a Friday. And that's the reality of it is that, and everyone hates him, and I'm going to use him as an example because of that. But when you look at the Elon Musk story with his data center, when he was told it was 8 months to build the new data center, and he goes in and does it in a weekend. Unfortunately, things are changing quickly now, and I think people need to find the joy again in what they do, and they need to find the right people in the teams to come together who share common. I'm all for work-life balance, by the way. Look, I live in Scotland, and I'm trying my best to be out in nature as much as I can, and as much as anybody. But nevertheless, I think it's gone the other way. I think we now need to up the rate of the pace that we work. I think we've all been too laid back, and I think, AI is almost taking our jobs because we've made ourselves redundant to a certain degree because it's done that. So I think that UK businesses really need to change. If you look at the US and the way they operate, I'm not living in the States because I don't want to work in that necessarily that way. But nevertheless, I think we're here, the rest of the world's here, and I think we need to step up. And I think, just look at this. And here's a great one. I think former chairman of Google, Eric Schmidt, he said when he left Google because it was no longer a startup. They'd lost the hunger. And one could argue they've been quite behind on AI to this point. I think they're catching up now. But, when you look at it, I think potentially right now, those who will do well moving forwards will be those high performing teams with high agency people who work together with a high performing culture, hand in hand with technology at a pace that is manageable and fun. Yeah. And enjoyable. Like, I don't mean like working for the sake of working. Like, you've got to do what you love. But when people have got side hustles and doing things that then they don't love their job. Like, we're encouraging people to have side hustles. Well, do what you love. Don't have two businesses on the go, or have two careers on the go. Yeah. Is that making sense to you? You're smiling at me.
Do you know why? Do you know why? Because I'm kind of glad you said it and not me. But I always think I was brought up in the early 90s and I loved my job, and I have always been a bit of a workaholic. I'm not saying it's right for everybody, it's not. But you're talking my language now, and I'm kind of thinking if I was an agency owner listening to this, and maybe they realize themselves that they've got to speed up, get on it, and they are actually bursting with ideas for how they can transform. But they've got maybe a bigger team and they're worried that the energy's not there, or they haven't created the environment, a culture that's got that motivated level of. What would your advice be for how they can reactivate the team or re-energize or remotivate, or where do you
Yeah,
start with that
it's
sense?
interesting. I'm doing a talk next week on this, so it's kind of quite close to my heart. Right, the first thing is, I think it's like all creating any high performance team. First of all, you have got to have the right people in the business, and I think far too often as owners, we are too nice and we compromise and we let people in who are talented jerks. They're like 89% good and 20% useless, and we somehow forgive them all the time and make life hard for us. So first of all, we create a vision right now today. I think everyone stopped doing this and I understand why, because it's not been easy when you've had visions and the economy's changed the path that you're on. Then you feel like you're not achieving anything. It's showing the goal, your visions, it's not happening. I get it, but now is the time to reset this vision. Find out if the team are on board to come with you on the journey. Good to Great, classic, classic book, Jim Collins. And so, is everyone on the team coming on that journey with you? Have you got the right people in the right seats? Is everyone excited about the now, next, and future? Whatever that may well be, we don't really know. None of us really know, but we can have a damn good guess at some of the things I've already said to you. Like, there's some things that are going to be fairly predictable within a range, and then I would start by saying, right, the next problem that comes into the business, why don't we fix it in a day? How could we do that? let's just stop coming up with bullshit reasons why it can't be done. Remember COVID happened, how we all suddenly went online overnight and all these companies changed. I was like, and so I think it's the responsibility of the whole team to come together with the lead and just to say, right, we want to make our business future proof. I believe that any company now of any size doesn't need to recruit anybody else. I think people can grow with their existing team. Like, I'm not saying don't recruit someone else if you're growing and you've got demand, but I think so many teams now can improve what they've got from where they are. But I keep hearing stories, Jenny. Like, I heard one last week. Oh, my WordPress developers, yeah, they won't embrace AI. I mean, what? Like, if team members or you're in a team and you're saying things like AI is shit rather than I'm learning to work with it to enhance the way I am, and I'm experimenting and I'm going, because we all know it's going to get better and better, and so you're better to know it now than to just to give up and be cynical. I think all the people that tried ChatGPT in 20, was it 22 when it first came out? I could get my years right now, 22, 23, and they went, oh no, it's not very good, and it didn't go back. But it's, and to be fair, I did that with some of the no code tools. They were terrible, but then I went back 6 months later and they were brilliant. And so, so I think from what you're saying, I think I'm a great believer in growth mindset. So I would tell the leader to do an immediate survey, get ChatGPT to write you the quiz in type form, and I would make sure everyone's a growth mindset. If anyone's not, I would happily help them do a coaching session or to see whether you can change their mind. But if they're in a fixed mindset position, you've got some work cut out. And have you got time? Have you got time to fix people? I don't know. Listen, I'm all for trying first, but make it clear to people, look, I'm helping you to help me here, do a bit of a Jerry Maguire on it. And then I think if you can, growth mindset, I think high agency, encouraging people, create an environment, of psychological safety. It's okay if you use AI and you make a mistake, but you've got to own up, and you've also got to share all the things that are working, all the things that aren't working, and share with your colleagues and join together. And I mean, I tell this story of my journey to AI talk. I remember walking into AKQA, who was probably one of the biggest digital agencies, right, at the end of the noughties. And Jaz Ahmed kindly gave me a tour around his office. And I noticed a similarity between my office at Bluhalo and his, which I then, again, pattern recognition, which was everyone on the team, as I was walking around, they were looking at TechCrunch. They were looking at Mashable. They were looking at what other people were doing, and they were curious. The curiosity factor was like this core value. And I think that we all need to make sure our cultures are not cynical, that they are curious, and that they have, and there's some stuff in there. Hopefully, I mean, I think there's a term high agency which is being used a lot, to describe, people who aren't. I'm not, Jo Reed, don't you? I probably embarrass her by she's off on maternity leave at the moment. But let me give a quick example of what high agency is to me. Okay, so Jo Agency is known for doing service delivery. She's the opposite of you in a way. She's project manager, not a client service person, and she's great at project management. Okay, and I would argue she's world class at it. She's a chief delivery officer level. She's done it all her career. She's like you. She started at a junior and worked her way all the way up. Yeah, but about a year ago, agencies weren't really investing anymore in service delivery. It sort of slowed down a bit. And so Jo and I sort of had a chat and said, do you know what? I actually think that in the end, AI is going to be running all of our agencies. So you need to now basically retrain and relearn, I think. And if you can do that, then I would imagine that we'll end up becoming very, we'll have high demand levels again, because not everybody else is really doing this. Now, she could have done what some of my other teammates had said when I suggested to them that maybe they should learn about AI. They could go, oh, it doesn't work properly, and show me articles on why it isn't good and how they weren't going to do it, how it was a threat to them. And they could have done all those things, but Jo didn't. She went away, and she didn't just use company time, she used her own time, and she started experimenting with every tool. She went through our whole business off her own back and worked out where were the points that we were most unproductive, and how could she fix that first? How could she use AI to fix our business in order to then be able to show other clients how we've done that and how we could. And I mean, take nothing away. At the end of the day, That last business was, 13 people doing 2.8 million, which is a higher billings ratio than any agency. And a lot of that came down to the efficiency team. And the same with Abby, who works with me now. Abby took all our IP. We created Tabitha. We've still got Tabitha now in Bluhalo. And Tabitha is a proprietary AI of all of our knowledge from the past 26 years, basically. But to create that, she could have said, "Oh, it's not my job. I'm an operations director," but she didn't. She said, "Okay, I don't know nothing about it, but I'm going to learn about it." She learned to create digital twins in synesthesia. Still can't say it properly. And so between the two of them, they showed high agency. They didn't push back. They took ownership. They were proactive. They drove. They created solutions to problems in the business that by identifying themselves, they worked autonomously. They worked proactively, yeah, to do those things. And that's what, as a leader, we need people like those around you right now to help the businesses transform. That was a real monologue there, wasn't it?
No, that was beautiful. Honestly, Spencer, I think that's so well articulated because it's so true. And I'm 100% with you. The other flip side of that is that I've equally been having account managers coming to talk to me to say, my agency leader isn't adopting AI. So it's reversed. So
Yeah.
they're the ones that are desperate to start utilizing the tools kind of safely as well with using their existing data. Any advice for the team members themselves?
Well, I had a brilliant story the other day. I was in, so I do business reviews, and I was doing a business review, quite a large £8 million agency. And we're in the business review, and they're saying, well, our clients, without trying to give who they are away, our clients are in a very highly regulated sector. I was to say that. And anyway, basically, I was then told this story about how one of their clients had called them up, the account manager, and said, "Have you used AI on our work?" And the account manager panicked and her heart sunk. Said, "Let me find out for you." And this is one of the largest companies in the world, by the way. And so the account manager runs internally and goes, guys, tell me we didn't use AI on that piece of content we created. They went, no, we didn't. Everything was done, honestly, everything was written and crafted by humans. The design was done by designers. Are you sure? Nothing. No. Okay, great. Goes back, rings client. Oh yeah, just to let you know, nothing was used. He said, well, why the hell not? We need all our suppliers to be using AI. So in their case, the customers are
Yeah.
telling them they got to do it. So I think my advice to the account managers would be get closer to your clients, find out what they need, get that information in. Listen, you've got to, owners love nothing more and leaders of business than people that are 2 steps ahead of them, not 1 step behind. So go to your leader and say, look, I've spoken to the customers. Here's the data. I've been playing with these tools and use the initiative. I need a credit to be able to play some more to experiment, some usage credits if you do need them, and say, look, give me a business account. And I'm going to create you a case study with this client that's going to transform the business because all the customers will want to follow this case study next. Don't just be meek or be subservient. And listen, account managers are the most wonderful. They take care of their clients. They look after, they nurture. They're brilliant. But sometimes, not all of them, by the way, but sometimes, you've got to stand up above the parapet and you've got to be able to say, look, there's an opportunity here. And I think just put together a good commercial. Don't start suggesting you're investing millions of pounds. You've got to remember agencies are never the most cash rich businesses, but if you've got a way to improve efficiency in the business, to improve profitability, all that stuff's going to help. If you can improve client revenue, that's going to help as well. The one thing I would say as well, though, is if you are getting to do work with your clients, try and get the legal contracts tied up and sewn up. I think the more agencies do that, I think the better, because I think that it locks you into that organization much more.
We had Ryan on the show a couple of episodes ago talking about all of the legalities, Ryan at Hybrid, and
Oh yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and they've been great. They've actually put in contracts to a couple of my clients, and it's locked them in, and that's what you really want as well. So you need someone who's going to be, obviously legally sensitive to some of the challenges, but at the same time being pragmatic enough to get a contract in place. So
How important, Spencer, because I'm conscious of your time, but I also want to talk about the M&A side of your business
yeah.
and what you've been doing there, because What are you seeing in terms of the buyer market for agencies? What are they looking for?
AI. I mean, every single buyer, without exception, in the last 12 months has said, what are they doing with AI? So, I mean, like, if you think about what I'm doing now, I'm not, ultimately, what will I be doing? Will I be doing an A for agencies in 10 years? Probably not. I mean, I would certainly be doing A for businesses who are utilizing AI fundamentally in the way they deliver their business, and we're looking for products or services to complement that. So for me, I'm not only is it important for me to play with AI, to understand it, to be able to develop in it, to be able to do everything from vibe coding to just, I don't know, to creating agents, right? To do all those things and put it practically actionable stuff in my own business. But if I can do all that stuff, then it'll become a lot easier for me to work with those companies when it comes to helping them buy and sell and understand the potential, right? So from my point of view, all the buyers of agencies, but I think also there's a bit of a, I'd say this misnomer, but it's like there are agencies still. Economic growth is quite slow outside of the States. I know that we're the second fastest to GDP, but no one really believes that means that we've got a fast growing economy right now. And I think that we are, we're definitely in the US. I think is a slight at the moment. I mean, most agencies I'm working with that work in the US are doing really well. So let's just be really clear about that. It's, Middle Eastern Americans seem to have a huge amount of demand coming out. I've lost my train of thought now because I started thinking about America.
No, we're talking about the M&A and the
Oh, the
different.
M&A. Sorry, yeah. So M&A in Europe has been a lot around acquisitions to grow. So because organic growth has been slow and erratic, a lot of people have said, shit, we need to grow. We need to hit our numbers. Can you help us buy someone? So buying, there's certain types of agencies right now that are still in demand. We've got one at the moment, a group going through buying we're actually representing the group to buy the company. And we've represented two people to sell right now. So, there are buyers and sellers out there. I think everyone thought every agency was selling. I don't think it's not. I've certainly seen more agencies for sale than now. I think certainly a huge amount of closed down, Jenny. I think I've seen probably over 150 people either close the doors or go and get jobs. I think that's more than I've ever seen in 25 years of this business. I think it was about 60 people only 12 months ago, but just so many people now have just decided it's not for them. And there's been an oversupply issue since the pandemic. Too many agencies, not enough demand, and then a shrink in global advertising. It's natural. And of course, the big ad agencies were smart because they downsized quickly, but the independents I don't think did as quick. And so I think they tend to hang on to people longer and try to make it work. And then I think eventually it's come back. But so M&A I think is important. I think it's helping people scale through acquisition. I think it's also helping people become more global. I think it's helping the Americans become by Europe and getting more. A couple of the biggest successes we've had of late have been helping UK companies get more international growth through M&A, or otherwise getting more global reach from the USA. So yeah, I think it's good. But I'm sort of branching out a little bit more into sort of also technical services area at the moment, because I'm seeing a lot of those guys doing very well. And it's a space I know because I work with Wirehive, who eventually sold to Pax8 for many years. So I think there's a little bit of convergence there with some agencies and some technical businesses with AI as well, which I think agencies have got to be aware of and not blindsided by.
Yeah. Spencer, I'm conscious of your time. This has been so valuable. Thank you so much for sharing so much. I think it's really given a lot of people food for thought. Final pieces of advice for people listening before I then ask you about how to work with you.
Final piece. I mean, I've been saying this phrase, which I stole off Sam Altman, which is basically, ride the wave of change. And I just think, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed. I think, just trying to pick up a little bit of knowledge and news each day on what's happening, I think keeps you up to date, as always, with news and knowledge on things. But I think it's important that, you can't do it all by yourself. You need a team of people around you to share the load. So I think do what you can to try and focus now on how, as a team, you can jointly ride this wave of change. Just remember there's three pillars in every agency business. There's the operational pillar, the internal side. How do you fix and improve the processes using automation and innovate perhaps some of the IP and tools that you have? How do you improve the client experience? And because with the new goals, I mean, listen, it's great for you here. Is really for me is client services, because I've had a lot of tech companies try to buy agencies because they want to buy the client relationships, because they know that some business to business relationships are, hugely interpersonal, and therefore, so you've got to focus on your client experience externally, your client experience, not just about the work, but about the relationship experience. Yeah, the outcomes experience, it was the old thing for many, many years. And how are you using AI to enhance and improve that whole area? And then lastly, how do you innovate what you deliver to clients? And so think about those three pillars, get your team behind you, help you, and ride the wave of change. And I think as long as you're progressing and evolving forwards, hopefully some of those evolutionary changes will move into revolutionary ones and fundamental ones, and you'll find yourself in a strong position because you'll be within opportunities where you can help and your competition can't. Yeah. So that's kind of what I would say. Does that sound good?
That sounds
Okay.
fantastic. So, Spencer, there's inevitably going to be people who would like a chat with you. So, who would you like to hear
Yeah.
from, and what's the best way
Well,
to contact you?
genuinely, I mean, I say this like I stopped doing non-exec work it's about 2 years ago, actually, today. If I'm honest with you, I know that when I stopped it, it was like I was just bored because because of the mature market, nothing was really changing and moving, and so actually at that point I was like, I'm not really doing what I did well before, which was helping them transform the business on as well as non-execing for the under the bonnet to help them with the next stage of the journey. I've started non-execing about 8 weeks ago again, and it has been the most magical thing for me because suddenly I can take in my AI knowledge, my agency knowledge, I can take in everything from Tabitha and I can bring it all together. And I'm now working on a performance bonus with people. So they only pay me relevant to the size of their business. So I'm being super lower rates than ever on that basis. But I believe I can help you grow, and obviously, and I think people should be paid on performance these days anyway. So yeah, so look, I've got a couple of spaces still left. I'm not taking on loads of clients, but that's actually really enjoyable. That's kind of half my job. And then the other half is if anyone's ever thinking of selling or needs help preparing to exit or is looking to grow through acquisition, then just reach out, and then myself and Mark can help you.
You're
So
so lovely with my clients who I've sent your way to have conversations with. So, I would really encourage anyone listening to have a conversation, Spencer.
yeah, I mean, if I can't help, I'll always point you in the direction of somebody else anyway. So
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming. This has been amazing as
thank you
usual,
for the
as I knew
invite.
it
It's
would
been great.
be. All right.
I've got these weird lights going across me though. I don't know if it's kind of like Bluhalo to find intervention or something, but anyway, it's a bit of a weird